Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Courage and Fur for more amazing dog stories. Have you ever had that feeling, that tiny whisper in your gut telling you something is off, even when everything looks perfectly fine? We're often taught to ignore it, to be polite, to follow the rules, to trust what we see. But what if that whisper isn't just a feeling, but a warning? And what if the loudest, most undeniable truth comes from a voice that can't speak a single word? This is a story about that whisper, about the hidden dangers that lurk in plain sight, and about a hero with 4 paws and an instinct as sharp as any blade. This is the story of Max. Willow Creek Elementary, a jewel nestled in the heart of a tight-knit Midwestern town, hummed with the joyful chaos of childhood. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating vibrant murals painted by tiny hands. Laughter echoed in the halls, a comforting symphony of youthful innocence. It was a place where parents felt their children were truly safe, a sentiment reinforced by the beloved local hero, Officer David Riley. Officer Riley wasn't just a badge, he was a pillar of the community, known for his warm smile and his steadfast companion, Max. Max, a magnificent Labrador, was a retired canine, a gentle giant whose days were now filled with affectionate nuzzles and wagging tails. He was a familiar, comforting presence, a 4-legged guardian loved by every child in Willow Creek. His presence was usually a guarantee of peace. But Max wasn't just a beloved pet, he was a veteran. Years ago, in a harrowing hostage situation, Max had thrown himself between Riley and a gunman, taking a bullet that nearly ended his career but saved Riley's life. He hadn't just been trained, he had been forged in fire. And Riley knew, deep in his bones, that Max's gut was never wrong. The annual career day was always a highlight, especially for the second graders. Their classroom buzzed with excitement, eagerly awaiting the parade of community heroes. Among them was Miss Evelyn Hayes, the new art teacher, a vision of warmth with her soft sweaters and creative spirit. She seemed like the embodiment of kindness, her classroom adorned with colorful projects and inspiring quotes. Parents raved about her, how she brought out the hidden artist in every child. But the moment Officer Riley and Max stepped into that cheerful space, the air shifted. The usual happy pant and tail wag vanished. Max, the calm and affectionate Labrador, froze. His eyes, usually full of gentle warmth, narrowed to slits. A low, guttural growl, deep and unsettling, rumbled from his chest. It wasn't the excited bark of a playful dog, nor the alert bark of a guard dog. It was something primal, a sound of profound alarm. Every hair on Max's back bristled, a shiver running through his powerful frame. He could smell it, a scent of artificial sweetness mixed with something cold, something wrong, clinging to Miss Hayes like a second skin. The initial reaction was a nervous titter, a ripple of uncomfortable laughter. Maybe he saw a squirrel, someone whispered. Officer Riley felt a fleeting pang of doubt, a whisper of human logic trying to rationalize what his heart already knew was deeply, fundamentally wrong. He trusted Max implicitly, but the collective unease was hard to ignore. This was the insidious nature of early red flags, so often dismissed as anomalies, mere quirks, when they are in fact urgent warnings. We as humans are masters of dismissal. We categorize, rationalize, and often tragically ignore the instincts that could save us. Think of those countless stories where someone says, "I had a bad feeling," but chose to override it with what seemed logical. Max, however, operated on a different plane. He didn't process human social cues or appearances, he simply knew. Officer Riley tugged gently on Max's leash, whispering, "Easy, buddy." But Max wouldn't ease. His focus was singular, unyielding, locked onto Ms. Hayes. Her polite smile, once so reassuring, now seemed unnervingly rigid. Her eyes, just for a flicker, darted towards her desk. Small details, almost imperceptible to human eyes, but screaming danger to Max's heightened senses. The incident hung heavy in the air long after they left the classroom. In the faculty lounge, murmurs of disbelief mingled with easy dismissals. "He's an old dog," Vice Principal Evans shrugged. "Maybe his senses are off." But Officer Riley knew better. Max remained agitated, his gaze constantly sweeping towards the school building. He hadn't relaxed, not for a moment, and he hadn't barked at anyone else that day. Not at the boisterous 5th graders, nor the bustling lunch lady. Just Miss Hayes. Riley knew Max was trying to tell him something vital, something sinister hiding beneath a polished surface. His gut, mirroring Max's unease, churned with a growing dread. Riley sat in quiet contemplation, sipping his burnt coffee. His eyes weren't on the gossiping teachers, They were on Max, who sat vigilant by the window, a silent sentinel. Max had never been wrong. In 7 years of partnership, from tracking lost hikers to sniffing out contraband, Max's instincts had been his compass, always pointing towards the truth. This time, the needle was spinning wildly, screaming something was wrong with Miss Hayes. He recalled the time Max had sniffed out a hidden meth lab simply by lingering too long at a seemingly innocent garden shed. Max's instincts were his superpower. That evening, as the streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows, Officer Riley gave Max a long, slow scratch behind the ears. "You still got it, don't you, boy?" he murmured. Max looked at him. No bark, no wag, just a profound understanding in his eyes. Riley made a silent promise. He would follow this instinct, no matter what. He would delve deeper, quietly, keeping Max by his side, because sometimes the most profound truths are whispered by those who cannot speak, and the greatest dangers hide behind the most comforting smiles. This unsettling silence was just the prelude to a terrifying revelation. The night dragged on for Officer Riley, each hour a torment of restless sleep. Max's insistent barks echoed in his mind, a constant, nagging siren he couldn't silence. He knew Max was trying to tell him something vital, something terrifying. Across town, in a small, quiet bedroom, Lily May also tossed and turned. Nightmares, a tangled web of shadows and unspoken fears, kept her awake. The soft whispers of Miss Hayes's voice, now tainted with an unfamiliar chill, echoed in her dreams. The next morning, the air at Willow Creek Elementary felt different. A forced cheerfulness hung in the air, a thin veneer over the underlying unease from yesterday's incident. Officer Riley returned, this time under the guise of a follow-up canine demonstration. The faculty, eager to reassure parents and themselves, welcomed him with extra warmth. Miss Hayes greeted everyone with an almost exaggerated brightness, handing out smiley stickers. She even gave Lily May a shimmering pink unicorn eraser. Lily May managed a faint smile, but her eyes were tired, shadowed by sleepless nights. A tiny tremor ran through her hand as she accepted the eraser, a fear only Max seemed to sense. As Max entered the classroom again, the energy shifted palpably. His ears perked, his body snapped to alert. But this time, the focus wasn't on Miss Hayes. Max walked straight to Lily May, sniffed her backpack intently, then froze. A single sharp bark cut through the morning chatter. The room went silent. Lily May shrank back into her chair, her lips quivering, a silent plea in her wide, frightened eyes. Officer Riley's heart hammered. "Lily May, sweetheart," he said softly, crouching down to her level, his voice a gentle balm in the sudden stillness. "Can I take a quick look inside your backpack?" Miss Hayes took a step forward, her voice a strained whisper. "Officer, I don't think that's necessary. She's just a child. We don't want to frighten her." Riley turned sharply, his gaze unwavering. "Ma'am, please, stay back." His voice, usually calm, now held an edge of steel. He offered Lily May the softest smile he could manage. "You're not in trouble, I promise. I just need to make sure you're safe." Lily May nodded slowly, her small hand trembling as she offered the backpack. Max, sensing the shift, sat patiently beside Lily May, a silent, comforting presence, his gaze never leaving Miss Hayes. Riley opened it, his fingers carefully sifting through a pencil case and a Hello Kitty folder. Then something small and cold slid into his gloved hand. His eyes narrowed. It was a syringe cap used with no medical note. Hidden deep beneath the lining, next to it was a small cloth strip. It had faint discoloration and smelled sweet, artificial, like chloroform. A wave of ice washed over him. He looked up at Lily May, who was now utterly pale. "Who gave you this, Lily May?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "She told me to carry it," Lily May whispered back, tears brimming in her eyes. She said if I didn't, something bad would happen to my mom." Gasps rippled across the room. Miss Hayes's face drained of color as she instinctively backed towards the door, her facade finally crumbling. But Max was already there, a silent, unmoving guardian between her and the exit, teeth bared, a low growl vibrating in his chest. She froze. So did the entire class. Not a sound. Not a pencil tap, not a giggle. 22 second graders sat frozen, their wide eyes shifting between Officer Riley, Lily May, and the woman they had all trusted just minutes ago. The school principal, Mrs. Davis, burst into the room seconds later, her heels clacking against the linoleum. "What's going on here? Why is Max growling? Why is that child crying?" Riley straightened, still holding the backpack. "Ma'am, I need you to call district security and local law enforcement now." Principal Davis blinked, stunned. Why? Because, Riley said, his voice firm, I just found paraphernalia used in abductions inside a second grader's backpack, and that child says her teacher gave it to her. The color drained from Mrs. Davis's face. Her jaw dropped. Go, Riley said, his voice now a command. Take Lily May with you, and no one lets Miss Hayes leave this building. Mrs. Hayes's forced smile had vanished completely. Her shoulders slumped, as if the mask she'd worn for months had finally grown too heavy to hold up. She slowly raised her hands, still trying to appear calm. This is a huge misunderstanding, she said gently. I would never— Don't, Riley cut her off. Just don't. He motioned to Max with a short whistle. The Labrador stepped even closer, growling louder. Miss Hayes stiffened, but didn't move. 2 assistant teachers had gathered at the doorway, unsure whether to step in. One of them grabbed a walkie-talkie and radioed for the school's on-site deputy. Everything from that moment moved fast. The deputy arrived and cuffed Miss Hayes quietly, out of sight of the children, as Riley had requested. The last thing these children needed was to watch their beloved teacher hauled out like a criminal, even if that's exactly what she was. Later that afternoon, Riley sat in the school's administrative conference room, a yellow legal pad in front of him. Max lay calmly at his feet, watchful. Lily May sat beside her mother, who had arrived breathless after being pulled from her job at a local pharmacy. The woman's eyes were red, her hands shook as she held Lily May's. I don't understand, she said. Why would she give my daughter that stuff? We don't know everything yet, Riley said, but based on the cloth and syringe remnants, we're assuming it's an attempted conditioning tactic. Psychological manipulation. She might have been grooming Lily May for something bigger. Grooming? The mom's voice cracked. She used fear, Riley explained. Told Lily May something bad would happen to you if she didn't carry the items. It's a common tactic in trafficking operations. Break the child's spirit early. Lily May's mom clapped a hand over her mouth. Riley gently slid over a tissue box, heart heavy. He'd worked dozens of missing child cases. This one had just been averted by inches, and by Max. That night, Riley pulled into his driveway just as the streetlights came on. The porch light glowed warmly, casting shadows over Max's worn vest, which still sat on the passenger seat beside him. He turned off the engine and exhaled. You still got it, boy, he whispered, reaching over and giving Max a slow scratch behind the ear. Max looked at him. No bark, no wag, just understanding. Inside the house, Riley poured kibble into Max's bowl and fixed himself a sandwich he'd probably forget to eat. His mind was still in that classroom, still with Lily May. She had looked at him like he was the only safe person in the world. That kind of trust. It's heavy. He pulled out his laptop and logged into the federal missing persons database. There it was. Evelyn Hayes wasn't her real name. Fingerprint match, Clara Miller, suspected of child trafficking, ties in Nevada, Oregon, and New Mexico. Warrants had been issued, but she vanished before any arrest. Until now. The next morning, Riley returned to the school, not in uniform, not with Max. Just a quiet visit. Lily May was sitting on the front steps of the office building, waiting for her mom to finish paperwork. She saw him and lit up, her face cautious but hopeful. Is she gone? Lily May asked. She won't ever hurt you again, Riley said gently, crouching down to her level. Lily May nodded. Can I say thank you to Max? Of course. He walked her over to the cruiser where Max was resting in the back. The moment the window rolled down, Max's ears perked, his tail thumping gently. Lily May smiled and reached her hand forward. Max leaned in, licking her fingers. Thank you, she whispered. Then she leaned closer and said something that Riley would never forget. He knew before anyone else. He knew she was bad. I wish I listened sooner. As Riley drove away with Max in the back seat, he glanced at the dog through the rearview mirror. You saw something none of us did, he muttered. The dog simply yawned and curled up, but Riley knew the truth. Max hadn't just saved Lily May. He'd saved them all. 2 days after the arrest, the halls of Willow Creek Elementary were quieter than usual. The walls still had glittery posters and construction paper leaves hanging from classroom doors, but the energy had shifted. Parents lingered longer at drop-off, teachers kept their doors cracked open, and kids glanced nervously every time they heard the jingle of keys or the squeak of a shoe down the hall. Ms. Evelyn Hayes's classroom sat empty now. The nameplate had been removed. Her sunflower mug still sat on the desk, and the "You Are Loved" sign above the whiteboard felt almost mocking. Inside the front office, Officer Riley sat with Principal Davis and Detective Sarah Jenkins, reviewing a folder thick enough to give anyone a migraine. "Real name, Clara Miller," Jenkins said, tapping the top of the file. "Multiple aliases, forged credentials, state-certified teaching license from Arizona, completely fake." "She passed a background check," Principal Davis whispered, still in shock. "Because she knew exactly how to work around it," Riley said, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "She used a different identity, clean records, nothing flagged unless you dug 3 layers deep." He thought of a cold case he'd worked. A victim groomed for years by someone who'd completely vanished. The chilling parallels were now undeniable. "She taught here for nearly 6 months," Davis said. Was she targeting Lily May that whole time?" Jenkins nodded. "We believe so. Lily May's mother recently filed for full custody after a messy divorce. Naomi likely saw vulnerability, saw a kid stuck between parents, emotionally isolated, and easy to manipulate." Riley's jaw tightened. This wasn't just random, it was calculated, preying on the weak. "But what was her endgame?" Davis asked. Jenkins flipped to a photo, a blurry still from a traffic cam. Naomi wearing a wig, standing next to a man in dark sunglasses. "This man's name is Victor Thorne," she said. "He's been under investigation for running an underground trafficking ring out of Colorado. We believe Naomi was grooming Lily May to be taken, possibly over the upcoming spring break, when her mom would have been working overtime." Riley clenched his fists under the table. "So Max didn't just stop a teacher, he stopped a shipment." Jenkins nodded. "That dog saved her life, and many others." That afternoon, Riley walked Max around the school for a final check. The staff had asked him to bring the dog back, not for show this time but as a symbol of safety. The kids needed to see the hero again. Outside the cafeteria, little groups of students were already whispering and pointing. One bold boy waved. "Max?" he yelled. "Is it true he sniffed out a criminal?" Riley smiled faintly. "He sure did." "Is he like a superhero?" a girl asked, clutching her backpack tighter. Riley knelt beside them. "He's just a dog with good instincts, the best partner I've ever had." Max looked up at Riley, tail wagging once. The fear in the children's eyes was slowly being replaced by awe. Meanwhile, across town, in a windowless room at the county sheriff's office, Clara Miller sat cuffed to a metal table. She didn't look like a monster. That's what made it worse. Clean sweater, polite smile, calm eyes. Detective Jenkins stepped into the room and slid a photo across the table. Lily May's class picture. "She trusted you," Jenkins said. "You looked her in the eye and told her she was safe. Then you made her carry tools meant to control her." Clara glanced at the photo, no emotion. "I was helping her," she said. "She's 7," Jenkins snapped. 7. She had no idea what was happening. Clara shrugged slightly. "She would have forgotten eventually. Kids do." Jenkins leaned in. "Not when a dog remembers for them." Clara's expression flickered, just for a second, but it was enough. "You didn't expect Max," Jenkins said. "You didn't expect a dog to be your undoing." The next day, Lily May sat in the school counselor's office, a crayon in one hand and a picture of a brown and tan Labrador taking shape on the paper. "He's always watching," she said softly, "even when no one else sees it." Her mom sat beside her, holding back tears. "Do you know what courage is?" the counselor asked. Lily May nodded. "It's when you're scared, but you do the right thing anyway." "Exactly, and that's what you did." Lily May looked down at her drawing. "No," she said. "Max did." Riley watched from the hallway window as Lily May hugged her mom tightly. For the first time in days, she looked like a kid again. He stepped back, hands in his pockets. Principal Davis joined him quietly. "We're redoing all our background check protocols," she said. "We'll make sure nothing like this happens again." "It wasn't your fault," Riley replied. "Predators don't wear warning signs, they wear smiles." "Still," she said, "we'll do better." They both looked into the classroom, where students now sat in a circle talking about safe adults and trusted voices. "Will Max come back?" she asked. Riley smiled. "He never really left." That night, Riley stood on his porch, watching the stars come out. Max lay at his feet, chewing lazily on an old tennis ball. "You did good," Riley murmured. "You always do." He picked up the ball and tossed it gently across the yard. Max chased it, quick and graceful despite his age. For a moment, the world was still again. Then Riley's phone buzzed. It was Jenkins. "They flipped her," she said. "Clara gave us a name, 2 more schools, 2 more aliases, we're getting ahead of it now. Riley closed his eyes. The system wasn't perfect, but sometimes a dog's instinct was all it took to start saving lives. The shadow network was bigger than they'd imagined. But now they had a lead. The sun hadn't even risen when Officer Riley slid into the cold metal chair inside the sheriff's war room. His black coffee tasted like motor oil, and Max, half asleep at his feet, didn't bother lifting his head. They had both slept badly, the kind of sleep where your mind stays half awake, waiting for something, anything, to go wrong. Detective Jenkins stood at the whiteboard, a dry erase marker in hand, tension in her posture. 2 names, she said, tapping the board. That's what Clara gave us. She swore it's all she knew. Said her contact used burner phones, no paper trails, no last names. She underlined each alias in red. Caroline Ditt, Willow Creek, Illinois. Ms. Willow, no known location. Riley studied the names. Ms. Willow? That's it? She said. The woman was older, ran most of the operations, but never used her real name. No photos, no address. Just a voice on the other end of the line. Southern accent, honey sweet but sharp as glass, she explained. Riley rubbed the back of his neck. What about Caroline? Currently working as a substitute teacher at Willow Creek Elementary, she's been in that district for 3 months under a falsified background check. Jenkins's voice was sharp now. We've got a window and we're taking it. This wasn't just about saving one child anymore. It was about dismantling a vast, insidious network. By 9 o'clock a.m., Riley was behind the wheel again, Max riding shotgun like always. Willow Creek was 2 towns over, suburban quiet, soccer fields, sandwich shops, and PTA moms who smiled too wide. It reminded Riley of too many places he'd seen go sideways. The illusion of safety made it easier for predators to hide. As they pulled up to the school, Riley noticed parents still walking their kids in, no clue of the danger possibly brewing just a few feet away. Inside, the front office buzzed with the usual morning chaos. The receptionist barely looked up as she buzzed them in. We're not expecting any police visits today, she said. We're not here to chat, Riley replied, flashing his badge. I need to speak to Miss Ditt now. The receptionist blinked. She's subbing in 3rd grade, room 104. Riley turned to Max. You ready, boy? Max stood up, tail stiff, eyes sharp. They moved. Room 104 was a cheerful space, alphabet rugs, fish tanks, and posters that read, "Mistakes are proof you're trying." But the moment Riley opened the door, the air changed. A woman stood at the board, writing math problems in neat, even lines. Blonde hair, mid-40s, glasses. Ordinary, too ordinary. The kids turned in their chairs to look at the uniformed man and the canine in the doorway. Ms. Ditt turned, a smile halfway across her face. Can I help you? She didn't finish. Max stepped forward, one sniff, one look. His entire body tensed like a coiled spring. Then, a low growl. Riley moved in. I need you to step outside, he said, voice flat. Right now. Excuse me, she replied, her tone hardening. Is this about a parking violation or... I said step outside. She started to argue, but then Max growled again, louder. Children shifted in their seats, uncomfortable. Ms. Ditt swallowed and placed her marker down. Fine. In the hallway, Riley turned to the 2 officers who'd arrived seconds later and nodded. They cuffed her without ceremony. You have no idea what you're interrupting, she hissed. No, Riley said, you have no idea what he smells. Back at the station, the interrogation didn't take long. Under pressure and when shown Clara Miller's signed testimony, Caroline Ditt cracked. She was supposed to deliver the next girl over Easter break, Jenkins said. She had the child picked already, a girl named Emma Alvarez, 3rd grade, top student, divorced mom, no father in the picture. Sound familiar? Riley closed his eyes briefly. Yeah, it sounds like Lily May all over again. We stopped her just in time. The chilling pattern was repeating itself, preying on vulnerability. But what about Miss Willow? Jenkins exhaled. Still, nothing. But I've got feds working on it now. The moment we get a whisper, you and Max are our first call. That night, Riley parked the cruiser outside a gas station and let Max stretch his legs. The town was quiet. A spring breeze stirred the leaves. Somewhere a train rumbled in the distance. Riley leaned on the hood of the car and looked up at the sky. You think we'll find her? He asked Max. The dog tilted his head. Ms. Willow, the ghost behind it all. Max didn't answer, of course, but he stood tall, alert, like he was ready to keep going no matter how long it took. Riley knew Max was sensing the long, arduous road ahead, the silent promise of continued vigilance. Back at home, Riley fed Max and flipped on the news. A segment ran about the growing ring of fake educators being investigated. Lily May's story was mentioned briefly, her name changed for privacy, but Riley knew it was her. He reached into the drawer and pulled out a photo, one from Max's early days, sitting proud in his vest, mouth open in a panting grin. "You've stopped more than bullets," Riley said quietly. "You've stopped monsters." His phone buzzed. It was Jenkins again. They had just intercepted a call. A woman, southern drawl, older voice, cold, was recorded, saying, "Get rid of everything. We've been sniffed out. That damn dog." Ms. Willow wasn't gone. She was running. And now she knew about Max. The audio clip was only 8 seconds long, but it hit Officer Riley like a freight train. "Get rid of everything. We've been sniffed out. That damn dog." She said it with a thick southern drawl, too polished to be uneducated, too sharp to be underestimated. Cold, calculated, and furious. Riley played it 3 times on the drive back from the station, his fingers tightening around the steering wheel each time. Max sat in the back seat, quiet but watching his handler through the rearview mirror. "They know you now," Riley muttered. "You're not just sniffing around anymore. You're in her nightmares." He tapped the screen to replay the clip one more time. Max's ears perked up. The voice wasn't just a warning, it was a challenge, and the chase for the true mastermind had just begun. At the sheriff's office, FBI liaison agent Porter had arrived from Dallas, bringing with him more heat than backup. His presence signaled the national scope of the threat. "Ms. Willow," he said, pacing in front of the investigation board, "isn't just a name. It's a phantom we've been chasing for 5 years. No fingerprints, no financial records, just phone calls, burner accounts, and victims too scared or too young to speak." He pointed at the map behind him, dots scattered across Arkansas, Tennessee, Georgia, and now Illinois. Every confirmed sighting follows a pattern. She plants someone, that person builds trust, then a child disappears. Always the same profile: young girls, 7 to 10, single-parent homes, teachers or counselors gaining access. Riley stared at the board, jaw tight. "But she just slipped up. She mentioned Max by name." Agent Porter nodded. "That tells us 2 things. She's paying attention, and she's scared." Riley stepped forward, flipping through the last known call logs from Caroline Ditt's burner phone. "You traced the number?" "Bounced off 3 towers. Ended near a town called Harmony Hills, Kentucky. Population 4,000. 1 school. No police department, just a volunteer sheriff." Riley looked at Max, who was now standing alert, like he knew something was already happening. "Then we go," Riley said. "We go before she disappears again. Before another child vanishes." Harmony Hills sat tucked between 2 highways and a stretch of farmland. It looked like every small town Riley had ever seen. Churches on every corner, a dairy barn at the edge of town, and a school so old it still had a working bell tower. Riley and Max arrived just after sunrise. The air smelled like damp soil and grass. A dog barked in the distance, but it wasn't the kind trained for this kind of work. Sheriff Dean Miller met them outside the school, coffee in one hand, suspicion in the other. "Not sure what you're expecting to find here," he said, scratching his head. "We don't get trouble like that." "Trouble never knocks first," Riley replied. "That voice we traced? She was close enough to be watching." Miller sighed. "You think someone here's helping her?" "I think she could be here. Maybe not as Miss Willow, but she always finds a way in. A teacher, a nurse, even a substitute janitor." Max sniffed the ground and began pulling toward the west side of the building, his nose already leading the way. Inside the school, things seemed normal. Too normal. 3rd-grade art hung proudly in the hallway. Children's laughter filtered from classrooms. A staff member, an older woman with silver curls, smiled warmly as Riley passed. But Max didn't look at her. He kept walking. They passed the library, the gym, the cafeteria, then outside, room 18, speech and counseling services. Max froze. Ears up, nose twitching, he let out a soft but clear whine. Riley crouched. "What is it, boy?" Max stepped to the door, nose pressed near the floor seam, and growled low, quiet but intense. Riley's pulse quickened. He knocked twice. A voice answered cheerfully, "Come in." Inside sat a warm-looking woman in her early 60s, glasses perched on the tip of her nose, a pencil skirt, cardigan, soft curls pinned back. "You must be the officer," she said. "Sheriff told me you might stop by. I'm Miss Darla. I'm the school's part-time speech therapist." Not Willow, Darla. But the vowels hit Riley like a slap. Max didn't stop growling. Not this time. Riley scanned the room. A child's folder open on her desk, files neatly stacked, a school board certificate from Hillside University, a place Riley knew didn't exist. "You've only been here a few months?" Riley asked, stepping closer. "Just since February," she replied. "Small towns don't always get full-time specialists." Riley's eyes narrowed. "Mind if I ask where you worked before that?" She smiled. "I've moved around a lot. Military husband always packing up." "And where's your husband now?" The smile faded, just for a second. "Deployed," she said softly. "Somewhere overseas." A flicker of unease crossed her face, a tiny tell. Riley looked at the books on her shelf, titles about childhood development, attachment trauma, speech recovery. But one book stood out. It wasn't about education at all. It was a memoir, Broken Trust, Inside the Mind of a Predator. A sticker covered part of the spine, poorly peeled. Underneath, he could see a barcode stamped, Davidson Correctional Library. Riley stepped forward. Ms. Darla reached for something in her drawer, her hand moving subtly, too quickly. Max barked, loud, sharp, final. Riley pulled his sidearm. "Hands where I can see them." She froze, her fingers hovered over what looked like a phone. He crossed the room in 2 seconds, yanked open the drawer, and found not a phone, but a burner. And another folder. Inside, photographs, names, dates, and one in particular. Maya Thompson, age 8, asthmatic, lives with grandmothers. Darla didn't run. She just sat down slowly, like a show was over. A cold, knowing smirk touched her lips. "You won't stop it," she said quietly. "Even if you stop me." Riley cuffed her. "You said that dog would be your undoing," he whispered. "Turns out you were right." Max stood by the girl's photo, still growling, as if personally bearing witness to the evil she represented. Later that evening, Riley stood in the school parking lot. Maya's grandmother had come to pick her up early. The two walked hand in hand, the girl clutching Max's neck in a goodbye hug that made Riley's throat tight. "She never even talked about that woman," the grandmother said. "Just said she always smelled like perfume and made her feel small." "She won't come near her again," Riley promised, his voice thick with emotion. Back in the cruiser, Riley looked over at Max. "Every time we think it's done," he said, "you show me it's not." Max rested his head on Riley's leg. Outside, the first stars appeared, but somewhere, more names waited, and they weren't going to find themselves. The hunt was far from over. It was over. At least, that's what they told themselves when Ms. Darla, aka Dana Winslow, the woman they'd been chasing across 4 states, was finally arrested and flown to federal custody under heavy surveillance. There were no more fake degrees, no more burner phones, no more aliases, just one aging woman with a hollow smile, now facing enough charges to keep her behind bars for the rest of her life. But for Officer Riley, closure didn't come with an arrest. It came in the form of a quiet moment, watching Max doze peacefully on the front porch, sunlight warming his fur. After weeks of tracking evil through classrooms and playgrounds, through phone calls and hidden aliases, they had finally done it. "You finally caught her," Riley said aloud, sitting beside him with a cup of lukewarm coffee. "Not me, not the Bureau, you, Max." Max's ears twitched. He didn't lift his head. He didn't need to. He knew. The community response had been overwhelming. Cards, letters, homemade treats, some for Riley, most for Max. Willow Creek Elementary had even voted to rename their school library the Max's Den. A mural of Max, tail wagging, now greeted students at the entrance, a silent promise of protection. But the thing that meant the most were the children. One by one, the kids who had once been scared to come to school now stopped by to pat Max's head or tell him about their day, or whisper secrets to his floppy ears. Secrets only a hero could hold without judgment. Lily Mae was the first to visit after Dana's arrest. She brought Max a new collar. It was red, her favorite color, with a silver tag that simply read, "My best friend." She hugged Riley without saying a word. She didn't have to. Her nightmares had stopped. The dark shadows that once clouded her eyes had begun to recede, replaced by a quiet light. She even started drawing again, not just Max, but bright, colorful scenes of children playing, unburdened. In the days that followed, Riley met with several parents of the targeted children, Emma, Maya, and others whose names had been on Dana's list. Some cried, some were furious, some just held their kids tighter than they ever had before. One mother, hands trembling, looked Riley in the eyes and asked, "How did a dog know what none of us could see?" Riley smiled gently. "Because dogs don't lie to themselves," he said. "Belly, don't ignore instincts. They don't explain away warning signs, they just know, and they act." He spoke of how Max, in his steadfast presence, showed them all what it meant to truly listen, to truly see. A month later, on a cool Saturday morning, Riley stood before a small crowd gathered under the oaks behind City Hall. A local scout troop had organized a special tribute for Max. There was a banner. "Thank you, Max, for protecting our future." There were photos, drawings, and even a giant bone-shaped cake, non-edible of course. But Riley's speech, short and raw, was what stuck. He stepped up to the podium with his hand resting on Max's shoulder. "I've worked with this dog for over 7 years. We've chased bad guys, found lost kids, helped crash victims, but nothing prepared me for what he did this year." He looked out at the crowd, at the parents, the teachers, the students. "We all want to believe the world is safe, that our schools are sacred, that the adults in charge are trustworthy. But sometimes, evil wears a smile, and when it does, we need someone who can see past the smile. Someone who listens with more than ears." He looked down at Max, then back up. That someone for us was this dog. That night, Riley and Max sat together under the stars again. The breeze was light, the air smelled like pine and fresh-cut grass. Somewhere in the distance, kids laughed, carefree, safe. Riley took a long breath, leaned back in his chair, and spoke softly. "You saved more lives than most people ever will, buddy. Not with violence, not with force, but with instinct, with courage." Max looked up, eyes wise, and rested his chin on Riley's boot. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was sacred. In the end, it wasn't a badge or a gun or a database that saved those children. It was a dog's refusal to ignore what his gut told him. It was a child's whisper finally being heard. And it was a town learning that trust must be earned and instinct should never be silenced. We often teach kids to be polite, to listen, to obey. But sometimes the most important thing we can teach them is this: when something feels wrong, it probably is. Speak up, ask questions, and never be afraid to bark. Because the truth has a sound, and sometimes that sound is a growl in a quiet classroom. The fight for the innocent is an ongoing one, but with heroes like Max, the world is a little safer, a little brighter, and the whispers of danger will always be met by the bark of truth. If Max's story touched your heart, if it made you think differently about the power of instinct, or if you simply believe in the quiet heroes among us, give this video a thumbs up. Share it with someone who needs to hear this powerful message. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more true stories of courage, resilience, and unexpected heroes. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another journey into the extraordinary. We're here to remind you that even in the darkest corners, light can always be found, sometimes in the most unlikely of guardians. For those who have felt unheard, for those who have faced deception, for those who strive to overcome adversity, remember Max. Remember that your instinct, your inner voice, is powerful. Listen to it, trust it. It might just save a life.